right, folks. Today I'm joined by my good friend again, Norman, and we are going to be talking about a very awesome topic, which is how to get your first tech sales job at Google without a college degree. Norman, good to have you with us.
Great to be here. I love this. This is the origin story.
The origin story is very, very important, man.
Yeah.
Um, so you started off your tech sales career at
Right.
Google. Obviously, it's a name brand company everybody's heard of.
Yeah.
And you were able to do it without a college degree.
Yeah.
At that time when you got in, you know, obviously we want to know like how'd you break in there, but did you have some college underneath your belt?
Right.
Off there as an intern? Like how did you even make way into getting into Google?
Yeah. I'm lucky enough to have become a college dropout probably 3 or 4 years before I even thought about applying at Google. So this is someone who has some college experience, but certainly not a degree. And I went to a community college, so it really wasn't going to be a name brand college that was going to stand out, right? What I did end up doing really, really, really well is I put myself in experiences that I would have exposure to the skill that Google want to see, right? So the skill that Google wanted to see was any sort of experience or practice in sales. And so I got myself involved in a lot of different opportunities that could tie together into a really compelling story as to if they took a bet on me, would I be the right bet?
Got it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an awesome origin story for you, but to give people like some broader context,
Right.
did were there, I mean, were you like by any means an outlier situation, or did you meet other people at Google that was also doing tech sales that also didn't have a college
Right.
degree?
Yes, I was definitely one of a few. We had a lunch table, and so Google pays for your lunches if you work at Google and you're in one of their Google campuses. And the sales team would go out to lunch, and there'd be, hey, let's get to know each other. What college are you? What college are you from? So you'd hear Stanford, right? You'd hear Berkeley. You'd hear some of these top tier schools. You come down to the line, community college.
Or were there some people that were wondering, like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you're
Yeah.
about to work here or something?
Right. And so here's what I'll say is you got to think about Google or any sort of these name brand companies that are really big in tech. You're talking about receiving hundreds of thousands of applications every single day, right? Of extremely talented people who belong at Google based on that resume, right? They have all the credentials, etc. What really mattered was two things. And I would focus anyone watching this to think about how do you get these two things as fast as possible. One is the exposure and enough exposure that showed me I knew I had a lot of potential. So I was a waiter for 3 years. Being in hospitality for tech sales is really fantastic. That's amazing exposure. It's customer facing. You're dealing with objections. You have to sell, etc. Then I worked on political campaigns. So I was knocking on doors every single weekend, nonstop until the election day. And I was dealing with folks who didn't want to deal with me, right? And I was trying to persuade them that they should get out the vote. So I was that person. But what did that show on my resume? It showed somebody who is not afraid of doing some extremely hard work and crazy long hours to get results, right? And with someone who's coachable. I hadn't been there for 10 years as a waiter or in these types of roles. I've been there a couple of years. So I had tons of exposure. I had good foundation underneath me. The second thing you need is the network. So one of the things about being in tech sales is you are building relationships consistently. So another way to show that you deserve the job is by doing the job. So I earned friends that would bring me to certain events where people at Google were at, and they would advocate for me. And they would say, Norman is the person you got to meet with, right? So there was this networking component that gives you the exposure to the industry. So exposure to the skill, exposure to the industry, to the opportunity, and then they gave me a shot at an interview. And I mean, the interview is a whole other story. But I think that's what Google and any other great sales team is looking at. You're not just putting your resume through a bunch of some sort of filter where you're one of 100,000 resumes. You're actually doing the work, and that's how you earn the role.
Now, let's talk about like skill exposure and then also people exposure.
Right.
I there wasn't anything like Elevate at the
No,
time.
no.
Would you, I mean, and I think you kind of, from what it sounds like, hearing your origin story, you kind of replicated that experience into a curriculum.
Exactly.
Okay. So nowadays, when you're talking about other big tech companies, like, Salesforce is one of our hiring partners. Like, what are also like some other name brand companies that we work with out here?
So one of our biggest partners has been Outreach.io. They're a $500 million company based out in Seattle, Washington. They've hired 9 of our reps within a year. And so they, partners like this in the tech space and big employers, big and small, they actually want people like Norman's background that, hey, I didn't go to college, but I have so much work experience, but that exposure is closely related to sales, right? It shows that you're a safe bet and it shows that you really want to work hard and you bring something new to the table, right? You're not the same sort of person they might hire if they were looking in the typical town or a college that they were looking at. So they're actually really excited to speak with candidates that come from our program or who have some of these backgrounds. But if you can show that you've taken the extra level of effort, you've invested in a program like an Elevate where you've actually gotten specific training to this role, this specific career in tech and tech sales as a BDR, account executive, etc., the doors are going to open up for you, right? Because you're showing that you not only have the exposure, but you're doing the work. You're investing in yourself to be really, really specific on the skill set. And then if you're doing it right, you're also applying that. You're using sales techniques in your career search by getting interviews, getting jobs.
That's actually really crazy because like my old boss, my first job out of college, he almost had this he had this like spreadsheet that always proved that the kids that were coming out of the less well-known universities were always outcompeted the people that came out of the name brand university.
Exactly.
And he used to say this thing where he is like, hard work beats talent, and talent never works hard.
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
So
so
it's really about coming in with that energy, even before getting the opportunity. Is just constantly showing it wherever you're getting that exposure from, and then bringing that into your career search. That's really why I got the job. I earned that relationship that gave me the interview, and then every step of the way in the interview, I made it really clear how important this was to me and how I was going to out hustle everyone else. And so they didn't care nearly as much about my pedigree, right? They cared about what I was showing them every day.
in terms of dollars, man,
Yeah.
like where did you stack up against your peer competition? Because in every uh pre-pandemic in office
Yep.
environment, there was always a very visible scoreboard in
Yep.
form of a whiteboard. How'd you do against the other people?
So it was heaven for me because you're around people at these large institutions or these name brand companies, and a lot of them do look great on a resume, and that's how they get hired. But these are the same people who will complain oftentimes enough about having to do some hard work. So I ate it up. And I think if you have that mentality that it's like all you need is an opportunity, and if you take that opportunity, there's no going to be stopping you, then this is the perfect story for you. This is you. Because I was one of the top 3 reps in the country. And we do at Google, we did not team by team. So we do East Coast versus West Coast, absolutely. But then we would do country versus country. United States versus Ireland versus etc. So the United States, we were pretty much one of the top teams, if not the top team in the world. And I got to be one of the top 3 reps on our BDR division, which we called Digital Marketing Associates.
What was the product that you sold on a daily basis, like on a day-to-day basis, and like what
Yeah.
was the sales cycle like in terms of
Right.
time duration?
Right. So in tech sales, we have these divisions in terms of type of conversations. So, and type of buyers that we have. So there's SMB, small, medium-sized business. There's a mid-market in between small and big, and then big is enterprise. So
Mhm.
enterprise usually are really, really long deal cycles, but they also are willing to invest the most in solving a problem. So at Google, I represented the digital business ads division. So I would look at a company and their marketing team, think like Sephora, right? Sephora always, and this wasn't necessarily a client of ours, but Sephora every year needs to put a set amount of dollars to work for them. They need to put it in advertisement and marketing so that they get new products out in front of consumers, right? Well, so at Google, I would be evaluating a partner like Sephora, and they would have to meet a couple criteria, but if they could meet a couple criteria, we'd let them, we'd focus their investment in YouTube ads, Google ads, etc. But we were looking for specific customers. They had to be big customers. They had to be willing to spend 50, 100, 150, $500,000 every 3 months in advertisements. So these were really, really big deals. And we were speaking with executives like chief marketing officers and trying to understand what their goals were and if they were going to be a fit for our Google suite of ad products.
So in terms of the transaction size,
Yeah.
what was like the average transaction amount? And then also like what, how was your commission calculated?
Right. Okay. Great question. So anyone thinking about breaking into tech sales, this will talk a little bit about longevity as to what are the steps involved. So when I got hired by Google, I started out in what we commonly called as a BDR, a business development representative, or SDR, sales development representative. And your role as a BDR or an SDR is usually to find potential prospects or customers and then to connect with them, build an early relationship, and qualify them, meaning you'll ask them some questions to see if they're going to be a good fit for your solution, right? Do they have a big enough problem? Are they willing to spend the amount of money that you need them to spend? Is it known as a big problem throughout the org, right? These sorts of questions you would ask when you are trying to qualify them. And then you would have them meet with your team. So you would schedule a meeting. So you might call someone, have great conversations with them. Maybe you have to call them a couple of times to have some really good quality conversations. Ask them some good questions to understand if they're a good fit for your company and what you're selling. And then make sure that you schedule them for a meeting with another member of your sales team, usually a position we call the account executive. So I was a BDR. So my focus was bringing in these accounts and setting up their initial point of contact with Google, that first meeting. And so as a BDR, you are usually getting paid a high base salary, and then you're getting at least $20,000 to $30,000 on top of that for every meeting that you book. Not 20 for every meeting, but you get a piece of that 20 to 30 grand for every meeting that you book. So every meeting is going to be worth a couple $100s. So that's how that works. And it's usually a role that'll last anywhere between 6 months to a year and a half. So for that time period, wherever company you're at, 6 months to a year and a half, your entire focus is to get really, really good at understanding what a buyer is interested in, what are their problems, speaking their language, building trust, and ensuring that they show up to the first meeting with your company. At that first meeting, they meet with someone called an account executive, and that is the person that owns the relationship with that buyer, that prospect, we call them, for however long it takes for them to sign a contract. And if they sign a contract which says they're committed to using your services, then the account executive gets a percentage, a commission on that total value of that contract. So I didn't get to see all the millions that I brought in because I was a BDR. I was getting paid for the meetings. But my account executives who were promoted after, about a year, 6 months to a year and a half, you can have that opportunity to be promoted. The account executives usually make over $100,000 in base salary alone, and then their commissions usually bring in another $100,000, $200,000.
Got it. So during your time, how long did you stay at Google? What was your total duration there?
So I had this really unique opportunity where at Google, everything's a little bit longer. So instead of 18 months, it'll probably take 24 months to get promoted. And then you are competing internally, right? So I was starting a new family. I had a baby on the way, actually. And I said, all right, I could wait this out and probably do really well. Or because I worked at Google, other tech companies wanted to work with me, and a startup offered me a role to jump in with them as their first sales hire. And if I did well in that year, I'd be making over $150,000. So I took the leap and I became that account executive. I got that promotion, and I was at Google around 9 months. So just in my first year, I got that leap. And in that year, my first year at that startup, I made over 150 grand, and I was promoted from that BDR. rolled. So started off as a BDR making like 60K to 70K. And within a year, I was on track to doubling and making over 150.
Woo, woo.
Yeah,
All
tech.
right, all right, all right. Not bad. Did you, I mean, even though you didn't have the college degree, like, did you find it was hard to move out of Google? Because I think like people that naturally, for people that don't have a college degree, they might think like, hey, if I get into this company, I might have to stick around here because I don't have a college degree to move out.
No, I think something that's beautiful about tech as a whole, but certainly tech sales, is that your work will always speak for you, especially in the beginning few years. So the more that you can show clearly that you made an impact in your role, and an impact in sales is judged really clearly. It's the number of meetings you booked, the number of deals that closed, the amount of money that you helped bring into the organization. So if you're loving what you're doing and you're actually able to show those numbers of how you made an impact, you're always in demand. It literally does not matter what your background is. You're always in demand. It's just your ability to communicate effectively what you've done for other companies and that's how it happened to me, right? I still didn't have a college degree, but a startup was offering me a great opportunity because I was making a huge impact at Google and they wanted that impact. They didn't care about what my background was.
What was your title at that company when they basically moved you over there?
I
Was it
became a business development manager,
uh-huh.
which can sometimes mean different things, but usually it means that you are not only bringing in meetings as a business development representative, but you also have the account executive responsibility of closing those meetings and getting commission for it. So we call that full cycle. It's not broken up between someone getting meetings and someone closing deals. That person is doing it all. But I got an opportunity to help hire and start leading a team. And so by the time we left the company, we had, 5 different reps within my team and started off with just me. And we sold the company for over $20 million.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right. Well, we're getting close to time here, folks. So if you guys have more questions, definitely ping us in the comments, but absolutely schedule a consultation. This honestly could be you.
Yeah.
Uh, there's in the world of tech sales, the beauty is your resume are the numbers that you can put up on the chart.
100%.
And it's
Now,
yeah, that's pretty much it. Like you don't need the college degree to even break into like a company as prestigious as Google.
and I want to share, like, it took me 6 months to get into Google. And most of the time I was doing what everyone else was doing. I was just applying to jobs, trying to network and meet as many opportunities as possible. With programs like Elevate, we can cut that down in less than half because it's focused exposure and training and challenging you to put yourself out there in front of employers and network in the right way. Right. So all the failings I had and still being able to be successful, we literally created so nobody has to do it again in the same way. So this is a great time to be here and great time to be thinking about being in tech and tech sales.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Norman, thank you so much for your time again. We'll see you again next time, buddy. Thank you.
See you again.